I'm delighted today to be joined by Dominic Dyer, who's a wildlife protection and animal welfare campaigner, an author, writer, and broadcaster, co-host of Off the Leash podcast. Thank you for taking the time to join us today, Dominic.
Not at all. Well, it's good to see you.
Would you mind by starting by telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, by all means. My sort of career in wildlife conservation, animal welfare didn't come about in a sort of conventional sense that many people go to university and might study zoology or come from a sort of science background or work in an NGO movement, work their way up as such. I started my career in the civil service actually when I was 17 in a junior grade in the Ministry of Agriculture. It once was before it became DEFRA all the years later that we have now. Interestingly enough, I was just fortunate, I went through a clearing system to take a job in the civil service. I could have gone in the Department of Health or Employment and my life would have been very different, but they sent me to agriculture. And the first job I was doing was working in the legal department on animal welfare prosecution cases that the government were mounting for people that illegally poison wildlife and things like that. So from a very young age of 17, I was sort of going to court with lawyers and things and beginning to understand a bit about where government comes in relation to animal welfare and wildlife protection. I then spent 13 years in Whitehall, working in a wide range of policy areas of work on farming, agriculture, marine environment protection. I became a scuba diving instructor, got much more interested in marine conservation, went on to work in Brussels on trade policy and then on organic farming and issues like that. I sit on the board of Wildlife Countryside Link, which is an umbrella group for all the big wildlife NGOs from WWF to RSPCA to Born Free and others. And I sit on the council of the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, Veterinary Nurses Council as well. So I'm involved in that animal welfare side. And at the moment, I'm preparing for COP, where we're going to do a debate, that we're running with the Cabinet Office, a climate basically a debate looking at climate change and its impact on biodiversity and wildlife around the world in a format of question time, the same as the BBC format. That's where I am at the moment.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. What a fascinating story and a journey that you've been on. That's really interesting. I just wanted to share my screen and talk a little bit about this report that we've featured you in recently. This is a report on environmental sustainability, a study into tech brands' perception and impact. And within this report, we aim to highlight some of the topical experts around environmental sustainability and just highlight them and the brand advocates that are doing stellar work towards raising awareness, as well as encouraging more brands to be more vocal about sustainability issues. Here you can see you appear on the Environmental Sustainability Influencers list at number 4. And also I just wanted to show our viewers a little bit about your profile in our platform. And your profile here shows your audience size, your engagement and authority scores. We have you tagged as charity, non-profit professional, activist, campaigner and an author. You're also an event speaker, professional influencer and industry practitioner. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see here is your most engaged network, and these are the topics that you speak about regularly. If we flip over to the content tab, here you can see some of the keywords that are popping out from your tweets, and some of the hashtags that you use as well on Twitter. And these are your tweets here. We can also show your activity on LinkedIn. We're showing your post frequency per month, post reactions, number of comments, etc. And this shows you how you compare to the peer group average. So very high engagement overall, really good engagement scores on LinkedIn.
A few things. Obviously, I've been involved with marine conservation and protection of whales and dolphins for many years, particularly with my work with Born Free. And we had this terrible killing of 1,428 white-sided dolphins about a month ago in the Faroe Islands, an area that I know well and have campaigned for stopping the GRIN, the so-called hunter whale and dolphins, for many years. So I've got very involved in that. As I said, we're preparing for COP26. I'm working with various people as part of the Cabinet Office NGO program, which is going to be important when we all start to arrive in a few weeks' time in Glasgow, with world leaders coming together as well, which is crucially important. Doing quite a lot of work on wildlife crime. I was involved with League Against Cruel Sports. I worked with them and they had their result in court last week for Mark Hankinson, Master of the Foxhounds Association, found guilty of promoting illegal hunting under the Hunting Act, which is a big significant movement legally, which opens up this door about trying to tighten the Hunting Act to prevent the use of hounds to kill foxes and deer, which should have been the case since 2004, but it's been openly abused day in, day out by certain hunts. And we've got a big vote coming up at the National Trust at the end of October to try and stop what's called trail hunting on their land, which I'm involved with as well. So we've got a campaign event. I'm going to be speaking at that, which will be a significant media interest story. And I haven't finished in Afghanistan. There's more work I'm doing there, which will emerge. I can't tell you more, but there'll be more coming out in that in the next few weeks, hopefully as well.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
I think one of the big trends is the future of farming and agriculture. A lot of what I've done, be it in Britain or around the world, has looked at what we do. I understand this to a degree. I've worked with the farming industry. I've worked at the senior level in the plant science industry. I can understand the complexities of the farming system, but it's just not sustainable. Ethically, the intensive livestock system is a disgrace. It's horrible. So you can park that one. If you don't have the ethics, you just eat it anyway. But if you look at it environmentally, it's a disaster. It's using up a huge amount of water and land. And carbon emissions, 15-20% of the world's carbon emissions, or 25% in some cases, depending on where you look. We have to move to cell-based meat production. We have to move to a plant-based diet, and we have to move quickly. And I hope at COP26 there's a recognition that governments need to invest significant amounts of public money in it. What we need to do is give them a meat that's produced from a more sustainable source, and cell-based meat production is the future. 5 years ago, cell-based meat, if you had a sort of bag of chicken nuggets, would cost you the best part of £200,000. Now it's about £2,000. It's still too expensive, but it's coming down massively. But that's private investment. What government needs to do is now get involved and move it quickly forward. That technology, I think, will be groundbreaking. I also think we've got to look at how we can make countries like Britain, which are some of the most nature depleted countries in the world, believe it or not, we've got to rewild them. We've got to return what we destroyed. And we can do that. We have the technology and the knowledge to do it. I think, Lush is a good company I like. I know Mark Constantine, their CEO and founder, quite well, and I've been really impressed by, how that business has also survived COVID, because, a lot of retail chains on the high street have struggled. And have had to move, particularly online, and close down their outlets. But they are a really good company that's looking at how they can source everything sustainably, how they can remove animal testing from everything they're doing, remove plant-based foods, and come up with really good quality cosmetics and body care products that, really do connect with younger people particularly. So and all their packaging and all the innovation that they're doing, taking out the plastic and everything. So I think that's terribly important. I think some of the food businesses are making great strides. I like Corn. As I said earlier on, I think as a company, it's now private equity owned, and it's got more money being invested in it. But I think it's innovative, it's creative, it's a very good source of protein that's low in cholesterol, low in fat. Some of it's vegan, some of it isn't, because it has egg alum in it. It's vegetarian. I think what they're trying to do is transition into complete plant-based, but they're having to deal with that in a way that you maintain the food taste and quality, and that's not always easy. I know from the food industry, once you take certain ingredients out, it can get quite hard transitioning from vegetarian to vegan. But I think they're doing a good job with that, as are other companies like Cauldron Foods that I've worked with in the past that I think are doing great work, and lots of new companies coming in, playing around with different ideas. I think the problem with some of these businesses, you've got to get that pricing down. But also, I think government needs to be clear. If you want people to go to a plant-based diet, then maybe you need to be giving VAT tax breaks to manufacturers to produce this food, so it actually goes into the supermarket cheaper. At the moment, some of this stuff is actually more expensive than the meat equivalent. That's crazy, because you're not taking into account the environmental impact of producing that food. On technology side, there's lots of things going on, different companies and businesses. University of Cranfield, near where I live here in Milton Keynes, are doing some great work looking at hydrogen. I just think that is technology that we've really got to move forward with. Well, Chris Packham, I think, is incredible. What I like about him is that he's found himself a place as being the sort of, the David Attenborough inheritor, effectively. But he's also very willing to push the boundaries of debate on issues that he cares deeply about. So despite the fact that he's doing television and he's so well known, he's not scared of being controversial. Jane Goodall, who I've worked with, is incredible. She's in her 80s. I think is an amazing, influential figure. Virginia McKenna, who's a co-founder of Born Free, that I work with as a charity that I have huge respect for. She's 90 now, incredible as a former actress, but campaigner, and has been so vocal on the issues of wildlife conservation, animal welfare, and still is. Born Free has become completely, work from home, shut their main office. We do everything online, reduced travel by 75%. Foreign travel. It was an organization that did an awful lot to attend conferences. I think has led the way, in my view, in environmental NGOs and thinking about what we should do to react to this. Yes, that's more cost effective, and charities have had income problems and difficulties, and people have been laid off, and it's been a tough time for charities. But ultimately, it also shows that you're looking at how we can do things more sustainably. In my view, I don't think mass commuting is coming back, which means you're not going to have 59 pret-a-manger's all around London. You'll have 4 or 5 in different locations, because you just won't have the foot flow. People will use Zoom to work because it's more efficient. You can do more by connecting with people in different places at different times. Well, the best way is you could send me an email. I've got a simple email, just Dominic Dyer at AOL.com. Check me out at Twitter, DomDyer70 as well.
Great. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that wraps up the interview. So thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us today, Dominic.
Not at all. And thank you for your report. I think it was timely and it's very good. And you've sort of connected a lot of the dots about what's happening in social media and other engagement processes, which I think is important. So well done.